Hi everybody, this is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. I want to do another video number 4 in my series called The Christian Adventure. This is Unit 105, The Christian Adventure. These videos are not designed to be very big, they're designed to be really quite brief so that you can listen to it on your phone without using up too much memory. But each one of them is very, very important, and obviously the Christian Adventure is about being a Christian. You might have been saved just last week, or you might have been saved yesterday, or you might have been saved for 6 months. And what this video is going to do with the others in the series, it's hopefully going to put you on the right track for the Christian life. It's going to be a great way of making a great start. And today we're going to be looking at video number 5, which covers the subject of, I'll just find it on my computer before I say the wrong thing. So today's subject is called food for thought. Food for thought. Okay, and it's really all about Bible reading. Some people are already readers. You know, I know people who read a book a week, or maybe 2 books a week. I know people who read books at a vast rate, but I also know a lot of other people who don't really read books at all. You know, it's becoming a thing nowadays that people don't read books. Now, you may be a reader or you may not be a reader, but whatever way you are, it's important to teach yourself to read the Bible. What God has done is he's caused his prophets to put down onto papyrus or onto vellum, that is a skin, the words of the prophet. Okay, and as they're writing it, so they're putting onto paper the things that God has given to them. They are a prophet of the Lord. They've listened to God and they have put this stuff down onto paper or onto papyrus. And that, of course, has come to us down the centuries, and that is what we now call today the Bible. And the Bible is really God's way of speaking to mankind. That's what God does. He speaks to mankind through his prophets, whose word is recorded in the Bible. And I understand how that some people don't read, and I understand that some people like to read a lot. The question really is this, is what books have you ever read that you really made an impression on you? Have a think about that. You know, maybe talk about it in a group, or maybe just think about it for yourself. And secondly, how much do you read in an average sitting? For example, you sit down to read a book. When you get to the point when you've had enough, is it an hour or is it 20 minutes? Whatever it is, you know, it's important that we just know a little bit about ourselves. Now, the late great missionary, a man called Hudson Taylor, was asked one day what he had discovered during his long life. What is the great thing that you have discovered? This person asked, and he answered, there are 3 things that I've learned in my life. First, there is a God. Secondly, he's written a book. And thirdly, all that God says in the Bible is true. Isn't that great? That's a lovely quote, of course, but it's very, very important and very, very true for us all to know. It's a good thing, you know, for Christians to try to increase their ability to read the Bible, because it's through the Bible in the main that we come to a better understanding of the Lord Jesus Christ. And it's through the Bible that we understand better what it is to be a Christian and how to live the Christian life. And the Bible is like food for our souls. It's like bread. It's like the thing that we take in, which enables us to grow and to become stronger. And our relationship with Christ deepens as we get to know him better. Now, there are many sorts of reading plans, and some people would just pick up the Bible at the first page and start reading, and that's okay, it's fine. The Bible is like a library of 66 books, or 70 books if you think that the Psalms was divided into 5 individual sections. And if you imagine the Bible as a library, when you go to your local library, do you start at where the door is and read the first book, and then continue with that book until you finish it and then read the second book, and then when you finish all that, read the first book. You don't do that, no. What you normally do is you go straight to the book that might interest you most first. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, and you might not read all of that book. You might find that that book is a hard book you accidentally picked out. So you go to a book that's easier. You might, for example, start in Mark's Gospel, which isn't a big book, and it's a relatively simple and easy language, especially if you're using a translation of the Bible that's easy to read anyway. Okay. Now, there are many ways in which Christians have designed a way of being able to read through the Bible from beginning to end. And in the Home Bible College, we have a scheme whereby people can read a tiny bit each day, and as the year goes by, so they will have completed the whole of the New Testament in a year. Okay, and then they go straight on into the second year and they read the whole of the Old Testament also in a year. That's a great thing to learn to do. Of course, you might be an avid reader. You might read 3 or 4 chapters a day. You might read 5, 6 chapters on a Sunday. If you do that, then you'll get through the Bible relatively quickly. You might get through the Bible very, very quickly in just 12 months, or maybe a shorter amount of time. Some people like to read a lot. When I was very young, I used to read up to 30 or 40 or even 50 chapters a day. And that would take me hours, but it would give me a tremendous knowledge, and I would rip through the Bible quite quickly. So I'd never get bored. So you might be a light reader, or you might be a heavy reader. If you're a light reader, then try reading just 1 or 2 paragraphs at a time. Make a squiggle of a few notes, the things that you notice that's interesting. If you're a heavier reader, then try reading 2 to 4 or 5 or 6 chapters at a time. Now, there is a way whereby you can read, which is what I call reading with intelligence. Reading with intelligence. And reading with intelligence is a very simple thing. This is a Bible here, an old Bible of mine. And the great thing about reading with an old Bible like this is that you can just go to a particular passage, the passage for the day, okay? And you look at the passage, say, I'm going to read chapter 7 of Hosea now. And you say to yourself, before I read, what is it roughly going to be all about? And you might just skim through, survey it, it's called, and say, well, the chapter is going to be all about the response of Jehovah continued. Okay, so that it began in chapter 6, verse whatever it was. Now, the important thing is what you've done then is you've surveyed it. And the question you might ask is, well, okay, if this is the response of Jehovah, are there some key things that he says that I can make a note of as I go? And that's a question. So you've surveyed it, you've set a couple of questions, and then you then begin to read. But you're not just reading aimlessly, you're not just reading it remotely, you're not just reading it by rote. What you're doing is you're reading intelligently, and you're thinking about your questions as you go. And you might get to a point where you think, oh, that answers my question. So you might get a little piece of paper and write down how it answered your question. So that's the survey, the question, the read, and then recall. Now, recall is where you shut the Bible and you say to it, right, now what can I remember about what I've just read? Now, don't be surprised if you're like me. Now, when I started doing this many years ago, I found I couldn't remember anything. I got a memory like a flea. I got a memory that lasts about a second and it's gone. I had to learn as I go, and I had to learn to remember as I go. So that's recall. And don't be surprised, as I say, if you can't remember a lot. And then review is that stage when you go back and you say, now let's have a look at that again. What did I miss? Oh, yes, of course. And you begin to notice all the things that you've missed. So this method is called intelligent reading. It's called SQR3. SQRRR. Survey, question, read, recall, and review. There we are. So there's a little bit of something for you to think about. Now, of course, when you're doing your reading, you might think, Well, I'd like to study a bit deeper. I'd like to do some deeper thinking on this particular passage. That's great. Previously, we were just reading with intelligence. Now you can actually step up your game and you can say, right, I'd like to really study this passage. I think this is going to be very interesting. So what can I think? You know, the great Harold St. John, a very well-known Bible teacher, evangelist, and pastor, used to say this. He used to say, Bible study is like picking apples. Now, we can all pick apples, can't we? It's not that difficult. He said, first of all, you go to the apple tree and you give it a good shake and you see what falls. He said, and then what you do is you look at each individual branch one by one until you've seen what each branch has. And then thirdly, you look under every leaf. And that's exactly like Bible study. You might have a book that's, say, got 4 chapters. Well, first thing you do is you just read the book, see what falls. The second thing you do, you say, well, I'm going to have a look at chapter 1 now, and let's see what comes out of chapter 1. And then, okay, that's the first branch. Now we'll have a look at the next branch, that's chapter 2. And you read through and you think, oh, that's interesting, I'll make a note of that. And then you do chapter 3, which is the third branch, and you might go through a whole book like that. And then what you do is you then go back over that tree again and you look under each leaf. You're looking for that beautiful apple that's going to be so exquisite. What you're doing is you're looking at the Bible a little bit more intently, looking at a particular word or a particular phrase or a particular concept. That's what you're doing. And when you do that, you will learn so much and you will grow so much. Now we'll talk a little bit more about what I call in-depth Bible study. So we've got lots of layers here. We've got a reading plan, then we've got an intelligent reading plan, and then we've got Bible study. Now I want to talk about this 4th level. I don't know where you are. I don't know whether you're a young person or an old person. I don't know whether you're highly intelligent or whether you're a simple person. That's fine. Whatever you are is fine. But if you're able and you want to go deeper into the Bible, what I call in-depth Bible study, then there are 4 stages. Okay, 4 stages. The first stage is to have a look at the passage and say to yourself, what does it say? What does it say? Okay, what are the words? It's called observation. You're going to observe it, you're going to look at it, and you're going to read it, and you're going to say, what are the key words that it says? Oh, there's a key word, and there, and you just look at it and see what you can see. What does the passage say? Now here you'll have to read carefully, you'll have to think over what the passage is saying. Perhaps you might have to think about each word. You might use a Bible dictionary that will help you to understand the meaning of the words. And you might make a note of some of those words. The next stage, you might say, is, well, what does it say in other passages? If you have a Bible, a little bit like mine, and when you open it up, you'll find that there are references in the center margin. See them there? And there's some more on this page too. Okay, and you can see these references. When you go through those references, you're going to notice that there are references from all over the Bible that are related to this particular passage. And it's very, very interesting to sit there with a second Bible and to look at all those references from all around. And you will learn so much more by listening to what the Bible says in other parts about the same subject or the same people or the same concepts. That's the second stage then. That's called correlation. And here you'll need the help of a good Bible concordance, or you might just have the cross references as I've shown you in my Bible. Now the next stage, this is in depth, isn't it? This is really getting you to think, really. This is what this is all about. The third stage is, what does it mean? We've looked at what it says. We've looked at what it says in other parts. The question now is, what does it mean? And when we're looking at what it's mean, we may use a good Bible commentary just to help us here. somebody that knows the Bible very well that might be able to give some insights. Now, we need to be very careful about commentaries. We don't want to be completely dependent upon a commentary. Some commentators are good and some of them are not so good. So, what we're interested in the Home Bible College is this, is that we want to know what you think. We want to know what you have discovered about what the Bible means in this passage. You could go and ask a good Christian friend. You could go and ask your pastor. You could go and ask all sorts of people what they think this Bible means just here. I used to have a practice when I was really young. I used to get a little pencil, and if I read something and I didn't know what it meant, I'd put a little question mark in pencil in the margin, and then when I met somebody that was really helpful, I would open it up and I would go through those question marks and ask all the questions, and then I get a little rubber and rub out the question mark when the question has been answered. But the fourth stage of Bible study, we've looked at observation, we've looked at correlation, we've looked at interpretation. What does it mean? The last thing is, what does it mean to me? When I used to do this years ago, I used to 4 different coloured pencils. Or coloured pen. The first coloured pen was black. What does the words actually say? The second one was always green. What does it say in other parts of the Bible? The fourth one was, what does it mean? And that was always the blue pen or the blue pencil. And then I used to have a red pencil, a red pen. The question there is, what does it mean to me? Okay, perhaps this is the most important part of Bible study, and we need to really pray about it, and we need to ask the Lord to help you not only to understand the Bible, but to apply it to your personal life. Lots of people study the Bible and know the Bible. Even atheists read the Bible to find out what they don't like about it. But the important thing is for you to read it so that you can apply it to yourself and that it can become a spiritual benefit to your life. You need to be very careful, when you're reading the Bible, because obviously the Bible was written more than 2,000 years ago by over 40 authors over a period of 1,500 years. They probably didn't have you in mind when they were writing. You need to find out what they originally meant. You need to make sure that you apply, if you do, what the Bible says correctly to yourself. And then the next thing you need to do is you need to keep a Bible notebook. You can keep a Bible notebook in all sorts of ways. I've got lots of them behind me on the shelf, and they're just a notebook, and they're just a blank notebook. And I would just scribble my thoughts in. And as Harold St. John used to do many years ago, he would scribble his thoughts all week, and then on a Saturday morning, he would put aside his table, put aside everything off the table, and he'd get a clean, blank notebook. And in his best handwriting, he would write out the best of all the thoughts that he'd had during the week. And that built up for himself a tremendous treasury of material that could be useful for him in the future. So having a Bible notebook is exceptionally helpful. And then one more thing before we stop. Not only is the Bible great to read, and sometimes we forget a lot, but it's really good if we can learn to memorize certain verses. As you go through your readings, there will be certain things that stand out. For example, if you go through the New Testament, you'll find lots of verses that begin with the word for. For God so loved the world. For God commendeth his love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Very interesting that those little sentences that begin with for, it means, of course, because it's explaining something. And when it explains it, it encapsulates, for by grace are ye saved through faith, and not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Some of you may be thinking, how do you remember that, Stephen? Well, it's familiarity, of course. But I have actually taught myself to be able to remember Bible verses, important Bible verses. And that's something that's very interesting to do. So there we are. That's our little session for today on food for thought. We look forward to you catching up with us next time, and God bless you all. Bye for now.